Welcome to Healed to Heal, the podcast that champions radical faith, confronts unbelief, and amplifies a single truth. Jesus still heals. He always has. He never stopped. So whether you're still lying on the mat or carrying someone else to Jesus, this is for you. Hi, friends. Welcome back. It is the Healed to Heal podcast again. So happy that you're here. Today, I want to do something a little bit different. First of all, great news. My Healed to Heal audiobook was just recently released on Audible. It took them a while, but thankfully, it's finally there, as well as several other providers. And I've been receiving some wonderful feedback from people who have already listened. That is not to toot my own horn, but to tell you one thing that is absolutely true, and that is before I ever wrote the book, before I ever recorded the very first word, I had been praying that this book would land in the right hands, that the right ears would hear it, that those who desperately needed hope and healing would be able to hear the encouraging message in this book that Jesus still heals, that he is willing and able to heal you. It would be such an honor if you would just sit back and take in the preface and introduction of my audiobook, Heal to Heal. Preface. For the one who was told to accept it. For the one still lying on the mat. For the one who has prayed and prayed, but still wakes up hurting. For the one whose body aches and whose heart screams, "Where are you, God?" For the one who loves Jesus and wants to follow God, but was taught not to expect too much, not to set your hopes too high. This is for you. To the sick, the weary, the doubting, the desperate, you are not forgotten. Jesus still heals, still speaks, still restores. And your story is not over. This book is dedicated to the warriors in waiting, the ones who dare to reach through the crowd with trembling hands just to touch the hem of his garment. And to every soul who's already tasted the healing power of Jesus, you are the messengers now. Healed to heal, saved to send, restored to raise others up. This is your anthem, your fire, your legacy. Let's go. For every outstretched hand. But for you who fear my name, the Son of Righteousness shall rise with healing in his wings. Malachi 4:2. They overcame him by the blood of the Lamb and the word of their testimony. Revelation 12:11. The Spirit of the Lord is upon me. He has sent me to heal the brokenhearted. Luke 4:18. Introduction. Let me tell you something I've come to believe with my whole heart. When God heals you, it's never just for you. So many of the most powerful healing ministers in history didn't start out preaching miracles. They started out needing one. They were distressed, hurting, dismissed by doctors, overlooked by churches. But not just ministers, ordinary people too. Mothers, farmers, teachers, teenagers, folks like you and me. And then they encountered Jesus in a way that transformed everything, not just healing their bodies, but awakening their calling. I know, because when I experienced my own healing miracle, it changed me forever too. But the Heal to Heal book didn't begin with that change. It started long before victory felt possible, with a cry for help, a hand just reaching out through confusion and soul-shaking discouragement. The origin story stretches back to a time when I was on the other side of my own desperate need, after a fight I never expected to face. There was a season where I needed divine healing more than I needed my next breath. I had questions. I had pain. I had all the verses, but no results. There were moments I didn't know what I believed anymore. So I did what many of the people in this book did. I went searching. I started seeking God like never before. I turned to the Word, And then I turned to the testimonies. And what I discovered, it shook me to the core. When I went searching for the real stories, the undeniable, God-wrought accounts of divine healing, I didn't find legends. I didn't find fables. I found records. First in books, journals, and sermons. Then in unexpected places, buried in old biographies and missionary letters, tucked into internet archives most probably never visit. I even heard them in rare recordings, crackling with urgency, drenched in Holy Spirit fire. These were no myths. They were eyewitness accounts, faith-filled records, brought from the shadows back into the light, testimonies to the miraculous healing power of God. They carried the weight of lived experience, raw, unfiltered, and unmistakably true. And they had always been there, waiting for eyes to see and hearts open enough to receive. And what's unthinkable? What's practically devastating? If I could find this much with a flickering lamp, what might be revealed if we searched together with hearts ablaze? My own search began with a realization. I'm not the only one. Far from it. There are many others, healed ones, burning ones, trying to raise the alarm, writing books, sharing testimonies, waving banners that shout, "Go back, look again. There's more to the gospel. Don't miss your healing." How long will we let the thief keep stealing, killing, destroying? How hard have our hearts become? We've become numb to the supernatural because we've grown addicted to the natural, not because God stopped healing or the evidence disappeared, but because man stopped believing. We've called terminal what heaven calls temporary. We've signed agreements with death and traded the truth of God for a lie. We've settled for symptom management when Jesus offers metamorphosis, or better yet, resurrection. But oh friend, the testimonies, they ring out truth like clanging alarms in a sleeping world. From every corner of the globe, from every era of history, they cry out, Jesus still heals. He always has. He never stopped. And if you dig even a little, you'll find them. Not just tales of what God once did, but living testimonies that still ripple with power. From a former businessman named John G. Lake, who waged war on sickness as it struck his family, refusing to give in until every one of them was healed, then went on to launch the Spokane Healing Rooms and helped transform the health stats of an entire city. To a fiery British plumber named Smith Wigglesworth, the apostle of faith, who proclaimed God's truth with Holy Spirit boldness and through miracle after miracle proved the truth of his life's mantra, all things are possible, only believe. From the jaw-dropping signs and wonders of Maria Woodworth Etter's healing tents, to the jungle crusades of T.L. Osborne in Indonesia, where healing miracles erupted like a firestorm, to a teenage boy named Oral Roberts, pulled back from the edge of death by the power of God, who rose up to preach healing to millions. From the prayer of faith breakthrough of Carrie Judd Montgomery, whose own healing sparked a publishing ministry, launched one of the first healing homes in America, and became a lifeline to thousands seeking hope. To the spirit-drenched hush of a Catherine Coleman meeting, where wheelchairs were left behind to collect dust. No fairy tales here, just names, dates, cities, and tangible evidence etched into history, and behind each one, a trail of changed lives. These stories form the spine of what you're about to hear. Real people, real battles, real power, overcoming, then helping others overcome. Every hopeless condition you've ever heard of, and probably many you haven't. Healed, restored, redeemed. Shattered to dust when confronted by the resurrection power of the Most High God. This book, it's just a glimpse, just a match dropped into a vast forest of testimony. But once it catches fire, you'll never settle for anything less than the fullness of the gospel of Jesus Christ ever again. And that's the best kind of news because God never intended us to settle for less. Thank God there were those who refused to stay silent. Their testimonies still breathe and their stories still speak. They blazed a trail of divine healing truth with unwavering bravery and boldness, and God used them powerfully as a result. From generals you may recognize, like F. Bosworth, Lester Sumrall, and Andrew Murray, to battle-tested saints you'll meet for the very first time on this journey. They carried healing with power wherever God sent them, from tent revivals to healing homes, from dirt roads to city streets. And then you'll meet others, voices rising from our generation, miracle testimonies proving that God's restoration power doesn't dim, doesn't fade. They're testifying now in neighborhoods and nations, in podcasts, pulpits, and paintings. What you'll see, as I did, these weren't untouchable heroes. They weren't rare exceptions. They were just like me, just like you. They faced devastating illness, trauma, and disease. Many of them had run out of options. By man's wisdom, it was game over. But because they leaned into God, daring to believe, they tapped into His supernatural power and received not just healing, but wholeness. They were flooded with vibrant Zoe life from head to toe, spirit, soul, and body. They rose up from sickbeds and crushing circumstances with fire in their bones and a mission in their hearts. They didn't just receive a miracle, they ran with it. They realized that if God did it for them, He could and would do it again. So they became carriers of healing. They were healed to heal. That's what makes them so powerful. These are meant to awaken your heart. Immerse yourself in their stories one by one. Some well-known, others quietly faithful, who walked through the valley of sickness and death, tasted the miracle of healing, and came out whole on the other side. They didn't let fear or religion silence their stories. They shouted their good news from the mountaintops. They didn't stop at receiving healing. They started there. Their stories are a living flame, meant to awaken the sleeping and rouse the waking dead, to shine among them like the stars in the sky in a warped and crooked generation. These healing heroes and the legacies they carved with blood, sweat, and prayerful tears, they're here for you now, offered with this prayer, that what they stirred in my spirit will stir yours too. Some of these accounts were the very ones that helped ignite my own faith when doubt still loomed, when breakthrough felt too distant, too easily extinguished by the relentless pain. But when faith finally became unshakable, when my own healing miracle came, I couldn't stop at healing either. Once a living soul truly touches Jesus, there's just no going back. There is no before. From that glorious day forward, there is only can't help but speak about what we've seen and heard. In my companion book, Touching Jesus, I share more of that personal story, the wrestle, the revelation, and the triumph that followed. A breakthrough that nailed every wretched diagnosis of pain and disease to the cross once and for all. But here in Healed to Heal, you'll receive more than stories. You'll receive strategy, so you can learn to use testimonies the right way, the kingdom way. Because when you do, they become so much more than accounts. They become weapons of mass destruction against the kingdom of darkness, tools to build unyielding faith, shatter every lie, and launch you straight into victory. And once they do, you'll be equipped to take that victory into your home, your city, and your generation. You'll see for yourself as we walk this journey together. Again and again, the pattern repeats. God heals. God marks. God sends. And if He did it for them, friend, He will do it for you too. So there you have it. And that, guys, was just the beginning. This book goes on to give you so many true stories of healing from people who were desperate, hurting, and in many cases on their deathbeds, but they still received their healing. And then they didn't stop there, but turned and administered that healing to people around them. It is so inspiring. These stories changed my life. Once you understand some of the things that are in this book, you can't ever unsee them. You can't ever be the same. Not only that, the book also shows you something really important about how to use testimony the right way. Testimony is so powerful, so important. We overcome by the word of our testimony, but there is a right way to deal with testimony. And there's also something that I explore in the book. It's called the healing thread. The healing thread is about how your healing doesn't stay with you. It goes on and touches other lives and other lives. And there are stories that I followed in the book that just blew my mind when I discovered them. And I hope that you'll take the time to check it out. So go to the links in the show notes if you would like to get the full audiobook. We've got some wonderful shows coming up, some wonderful guests. And until next time, just remember, this is where you come to receive your healing and then carry that healing to the world, healed to heal.